All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on a market you probably didn't even know existed. It's a world where the assets are literally alive, the stakes are unbelievably high, and where a specific pattern on a leaf can be worth an absolute fortune. Yep, we're talking about rare houseplants.
$38,000. Just let that sink in for a second. That's how much one person paid for a single houseplant, a Monstera adansonii variegata, if you're curious. It's a number that just doesn't compute, and it immediately makes you wonder.
So yeah, how does that happen? How can a plant you put in your living room cost more than a brand new car? Well, to get to the bottom of it, we have to explore this really weird intersection of economics, biology, and, just plain old human psychology. Okay, let's get into it.
First things first, let's talk about the money. Because to really grasp the value of this one plant, you have to see where it fits into the much bigger picture of luxury goods, and also why it totally stands out. So here's the deal. While the super high-end luxury home market is doing just fine, the broader market for stuff, fancy watches, designer bags, that's actually cooling off. The people who might have stretched to buy those things are pulling back. This leaves the very, very top of the market to the ultra-wealthy, and they aren't just buying things anymore. They're investing in a whole lifestyle.
And this is really the key. We're seeing a huge shift in how affluent people spend their money. They're turning away from the trendy, mass-produced luxury items and instead looking for unique assets, things that have quality, exclusivity, and a real story behind them. And as it turns out, a truly rare plant, it checks every single one of those boxes.
But the economics is only part of the story, because the real secret behind that $38,000 price isn't some clever marketing campaign. It's straight-up biology. You literally cannot just print more of these things.
So much of the value is in that beautiful coloring, which is called variegation. But, and this is crucial, not all variegation is created equal. On one side, you have plants like the albo. It's a natural mutation, a genetic gamble. Those stunning white patches are totally random and, importantly, unstable. On the other side, you've got something like the Thai constellation, which was cooked up in a lab. Its speckled pattern is locked into its DNA, making it a sure bet. But for the true collectors, the gamble is often what's most valuable.
And that gamble introduces the single biggest risk for a collector, something called reversion. See those beautiful white parts of the leaf? They can't photosynthesize. They're basically freeloaders on the plant. So if the plant gets stressed and decides it needs more energy to survive, it can just give up on the pretty pattern and go back to being all green. And just like that, your high-value asset loses almost all its monetary value, practically overnight.
On top of all that, you can't just plant a seed and hope for the best. The variegation doesn't pass down that way. Nope. You have to physically take a cutting from the mother plant and clone it. It's a slow, manual process, one cutting at a time. This creates a natural bottleneck on supply. No matter how many people want one, you just can't make biology go any faster.
Okay, so we have the perfect economic storm and the biological scarcity. But what is going on inside the head of the person who actually pulls the trigger and buys one of these?
Well, it really starts with a complete change in how you see the object. This isn't just a plant you buy at a hardware store to liven up a room. For these collectors, they're seen as living sculptures. They're valued and judged just like any other piece of fine art.
And this basically splits collectors into two main groups. First, you have the art aficionado. For them, the connection to the plant is deep. It's almost therapeutic. It's about well-being, not showing off. Then, you've got the sneakerhead type. To them, getting a rare plant is just like scoring a limited edition sneaker drop. It's an exclusive badge that shows you're in the know, a part of a very specific community. It's quiet luxury.
Of course, anytime you have this much money and this much hype swirling around, you're also going to have incredible risk and volatility. This is definitely not a market for the faint of heart.
And if you want a perfect cautionary tale, look no further than the pink princess philodendron. A few years ago, this was the holy grail plant, easily fetching thousands of dollars. But then, big commercial growers figured out how to mass produce it using tissue culture. They flooded the market, the price completely cratered, and today, you can buy that same plant in a grocery store for less than 20 bucks. And then there's a much, much darker side to this. This crazy demand has actually fueled a global poaching crisis. We're talking about criminal syndicates literally ripping rare plants out of their native habitats, wiping out entire species in the wild, all to feed the collector market. It's a massive ecological disaster that casts a shadow over the whole hobby. Now, for the average person, the risks are a bit more direct.
The market is filled with scammers. They use AI to create pictures of plants that don't even exist. They sell variegated seeds, which, remember, is not a thing. And they use all kinds of high-pressure sales tactics to get you to buy before you can think straight. You have to be so careful.
So, after the huge boom, the inevitable bust, and the rise of all these scams, where does that leave the market today? Well, believe it or not, it's actually starting to grow up. The Wild West days of impulse buying are coming to an end. A clear hierarchy of blue-chip botanical assets has emerged. And you know that $38,000 monstera we've been talking about this whole time? As crazy as that price is, it's nowhere near the top of the pyramid. When you start talking about legacy assets, like centuries-old bonsai trees or lab-grown orchids that take almost a decade to even bloom, you are in a completely different financial universe.
So what's next? Well, we're seeing a few major trends taking shape. There's a big move toward large, architectural plants that really act as a centerpiece in a room. We're also seeing new plant families, like rare Hoyas, getting super popular. But honestly, the biggest shift is the move toward stability. Serious collectors are getting tired of the genetic gamble. They're now putting their money on plants with stable variegation that won't suddenly revert on them.
And all of this really points to a new, much more professional chapter in collecting. To succeed now, it's not enough to just have money. You need deep market knowledge, a scientific approach to keeping these things alive, a serious commitment to ethical sourcing, and even an understanding of how to integrate these living assets into modern smart home technology.
So let's circle all the way back to our first question. How can a plant be worth more than a car? I think we get it now. It's because it's not just a plant. It's a biological miracle, a living work of art, and a quiet status symbol all rolled into one. And that kind of leaves us with one last big idea to think about. In a world that's becoming more and more digital, a world of endless copies, is the ultimate luxury something that is singular, alive, and can never, ever be perfectly reproduced?